Hello and welcome back to Better Biopharma, the official podcast of Bioprocess Online. On this very special episode, I am joined by my fellow chief editors from the Life Science Connect ecosystem to film an editorial roundtable where we're going to discuss our favorite projects throughout the year and our outlooks for 2026. Joining me is our chief editor for Pharmaceutical Online, Katie Anderson, here in the studio.
Hi, everybody.
We're also joined by Dr. Jeff Buguliskis, deputy chief editor at Outsourced Pharma.
Hey, Tyler. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jeff. Joining us also is Ben Comer, chief editor at Life Science Leader.
Glad to be here, Tyler.
Ray Dogum, chief editor at Drug Discovery Online.
Hey, Tyler. Appreciate being here.
Erin Harris, chief editor at Cell and Gene.
Hey, Tyler. Thanks for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Of course. And last but certainly not least, Anna Rose Welch, chief editor at Advancing RNA.
Hi, Tyler. Thanks so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
I am so happy to have you all here. I've been looking forward to this for weeks. And since this episode is dropping on New Year's Eve, I found it fitting to go through what we've done through the year and really, reflect on our spaces and our markets and industry and just share what we are proud of that we've worked on and what we're excited by. So thinking back on this time last year, how do you think 2025 compared to your predictions and expectations that you set forth in 2024? What ended up happening or not happening that you thought would? Ben, you're in my top left. Let's start with you.
Yeah, I think from a macroeconomic perspective, I expected at the end of last year for the funding situation to have improved more than it did. I mean, I think it's gotten a little bit better. There's maybe been a slight thaw in biotech IPOs after like a total freeze earlier in the year. It's still fairly sluggish in the public markets right now.
Yeah, actually, on that note, Ben, I just wanted to add, I think like the second half of the year, it's improving a little bit. We've seen it improve a little bit, but for drug discovery, like the early stage science and research stuff, I feel like the funding environment is still pretty hostile for those groups. So at least that's what I'm seeing.
And there's probably some knock-on effects, from the NIH cuts and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. During the shutdown, there was actually a 75% of the NIH employees were furloughed. So definitely slowed things down a bit.
Yeah, I'll jump in here from a cell and gene perspective. Echo completely what Ben and Ray have both said. 2024, the start of 2024 was a period of clinical technological validation, if you will. There was a lot going on with a strong financial climate, but cut to early 2025, and it really moved into a more risk-averse funding climate. And now,
Same thing, Erin.
yeah, and now for cell and gene therapy, the focus is in 2025 has been on commercial viability and scalability for advanced therapies, even among what is clearly a more, like I said, risk-averse investment climate. So with industrializing, it's not the best word to use, but optimizing, industrializing manufacturing being the goal.
Yeah, I definitely picked up on that risk aversion you're talking about. It kind of felt like it was a noticeable shift, I thought. And Anna, you're also speaking from the advanced therapy space. Do you agree?
Yeah.
You're at
Yeah.
RNA.
Well, so in looking back on, just some of the outlook based off of what I talked to folks, at the end of 2024 going into 2025, what I think was interesting in that nobody somehow in the RNA space really seemed to put together the impact that Trump taking office would have on the mRNA space in general, which in turn leads to a lot of sort of regulatory uncertainty, a lot of just general, I think, risk aversion around the technology for mRNA in particular. So you have, I think, this year, you've seen this weird sort of, I don't know if I want to call it a double-edged sword, of effects where on the one hand you've seen sort of a lag in funding and a lag in faith, right, in mRNA technology overall. But then at the same time, you've seen these really inflated deals come through from big pharma for certain mRNA in vivo products, right? Which I think is kind of a really interesting reflection of some of the work that's being done in the advanced therapy space overall, and some of the challenges that we've faced with the autologous, the ex vivo, right, spaces to try and industrialize that. There's been, you had BMS and Orbital deals. You had AbbVie and Capstan in the in vivo CAR T spaces. You had Verve and Eli Lilly strike a deal around there, or Verve be acquired by Eli Lilly for their in vivo gene therapy. So we've seen some really huge platform deals, which is somewhat unusual in the mRNA space. Um, as well as, in the oligo space too, Novartis and Avidity for their antibody oligonucleotide conjugates, right? So there's been some interesting platform deals, but all in all, I think there's still somewhat a slog, and a lot of that has to do with some of the regulatory and political uncertainty impacting that RNA space in general.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna chime in and be a little counter to everybody else, but I haven't been here for the full year, obviously, but I have the luxury of being able to speak with our chief editor, Louis Gargiulo, about the space, where we've been pretty aligned on stuff. But obviously, for outsourcing, we're not dealing with funding issues as much, right? Where, you guys mostly can write about, preclinical type stuff, which does require a lot of funding. We're seeing a little bit different stuff. There is, outsourcing seems to be, still riding a lot of waves. There's been a lot of production work. And the thing that would affect it the most in theory would be, the tariffs. And I think everybody was very, antsy in the beginning of the year going like, what are these, how are these tariffs going to affect everything? What is it going to impact it going to have? And, Lewis and I talked about it, and basically what we came down with, and he's written a bunch of articles about this, is really the resiliency of this outsourcing space, and how they were able to shift, still making products and sort of in some cases sidestep tariffs. So for example, there were certain companies, European-based companies, that basically decided, hey, we have enough money, we're going to build plants in the US and we're going to sidestep the tariff. And they were able to do that, and production still went on. And, the GLP-1 wave is still there. And I think people were worried about capacity for a really long time, but that seems to have subsided. And, I think everybody kind of got on the same page, and things have been running pretty smoothly so far from my perspective.
Well, I think, no one really could have predicted how big the investments in pharma manufacturing facilities was really going to be for 2025. We knew after the announcements earlier in the year that companies were planning on investing heavily in manufacturing. I mean, but just look at some of the billions of dollars that they're putting towards these new facilities all over the U.S. and abroad. It's I'm excited to see what's going to happen there in the future. So
Yeah.
and I mean, we know some of it was already pre-planned, but more than I think any of us could have anticipated.
Yeah. Yeah. And that raises a good question I wanted to ask you guys too, is like, what were you maybe most surprised by? I mean, I can go first and say maybe this is just my naivete talking, but I did not see the severity of turnover at the FDA, at the beginning of the year. Like, I didn't foresee that. Um, I forget when the funding cuts hit to NIH, but I also, I didn't see that coming. Maybe I should have, but I didn't see it coming, or at least having the effect that it did. So maybe let's go around the horn and see if there's any other kind of surprises that you were like, whoa, I wish I wrote about this.
I'll just say I didn't necessarily see the high profile brief resignation reinstatement of Dr. Vinay Prasad. I know that was around the regulatory uncertainty, kind of that forced sector-wide reevaluation of AAV vector safety, and trial design, kind of what was going on at Sarepta. But um, he was, removed from his position, reinstated. I don't quote me on the timeline, but it was pretty quickly, a pretty quick turnaround.
What,
Um,
2 weeks or something?
yeah, yeah.
We're throwing it. We're quoting. Yeah.
whiplash
It was-
in between.
it was- It was very quick. But I think that, there's, just with Peter Marks and Nicole Verdun and the various people who have since gone on, left the FDA, have gone on to other things at other roles. I'm hoping for a more steady 2026.
Yeah. And Erin, you have, a lot of connections to kind of the older FDA, at least. I mean, I know you've talked personally with Peter Marks and Nicole Verdun. Like, do you have any connections at the new FDA, or is it completely, or is anybody actually, if anybody in the group has connections to the FDA, let us know.
I personally do not, at least, as I don't. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I
Well, I
was gonna
think
add
that,
on to
all the new legislation from the FDA, all the new actions are great to see, right? They're exciting. But now we're on our fifth director of CEDAR, and frankly, there's not a lot of long-term leadership left in the FDA. So the execution of some of new um, these new policies, like how's it going to happen? Who's going to do it? Who's going to lead it?
Yeah.
That has like a good working knowledge in the industry.
I think I was gonna add on a little bit to what Erin said. I perhaps should have anticipated the resignation of Peter Marks. I feel like hindsight though is still 2020. I would say of this year, nothing quite hit me both practically and also emotionally, like finding out about the resignation. I remember it was like a Friday night at 10:30 PM, right? Which is what else does a single woman in her 30s do but scroll LinkedIn on the couch at 10:30 at night on a Friday? Um, I mean, really. And I remember feeling sort of like I was hit by a truck, and I vaguely think I remember texting Erin to just be like,
Yeah.
Erin,
Yeah.
what WTF, like what just
Yeah.
happened?
It's a big deal. Yeah.
It was
Our
huge,
editorial group chat was in a frenzy from the fallout
So
of that. I remember.
I mean, I can think of I'm sure there are developments, that certainly happened throughout 2025 in the mRNA space, again, some of those acquisitions being a big deal, the big pharma attention being a big deal that I think struck me as a really interesting positive in the space that I wasn't anticipating coming into 2025, but at the same time, nothing quite resonates still to this day, I think, with what I felt and what I still think of, the resignation of Peter Marks,
Yeah,
of the entire advanced therapy space.
it's a big loss for them. I mean, I'm sort of 50-50 on it in terms of like I kind of expected it, but then also didn't. Maybe I just was disillusioning myself. I've spoken with Peter over the years, and he was this guy that always wanted to help the industry. Like, so I kind of thought maybe he would, tough it out. But then seeing how far they were pushing him, and I guess I'm not surprised. But I think the surprising part was really how many other people went afterwards. The sheer number of people that left in sort of key positions, I think was not on my bingo card at all. And that's a big loss. I mean, the FDA had it had its issues to begin with, right? And like you said, I think like Erin said, like it's leaderless now to some extent. So who is going to step up to that role? It's going to be interesting to see for the next year and beyond.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Hindsight being 2020, like you said, it could the writing might have been on the walls, but I agree with you, Jeff. I did not see the fallout, like the sheer amount of people that would leave, of senior leadership, and
And I also just think
um
how emotional it was too. I mean, I think it just surprises me, I mean, we're in these roles, which I think is, we're kind of periphery to the industry to some extent as editors, right? We have this bird's eye view, but we don't work for pharma. We don't technically, I mean, Erin, some of us have engaged with members of the FDA, of course, but we're not necessarily in the trenches, right, doing this work. And so
speak for yourself. I moonlight as an operator on the side. I go clock in at
Tyler, you're full of secrets. We're gonna have to
that'd be cool.
list of just with you. But like I don't think I anticipated just again the sheer sort of emotional reaction I would have to some of the events of 2025 from a regulatory standpoint.
For sure.
I will say though, on a positive note, on a regulatory positive note, so the NIH announced, this is kind of a little off topic in terms of leadership, but some of the policies, they announced that they will no longer award funding to new grant proposals that relied exclusively on animal models. So basically making NAMs or new approach methodologies more prominent. And that's been, you know, an important trend throughout the year, like starting in like April with the monoclonal antibodies roadmap for NAMs, and it's continuing. I feel like this is sort of like building up. I think, not to jump ahead, but I think in 2026, NAMs are going to be even more of an important topic. And I mean, I don't want to say they're doing a good or a bad job, but the NIH and FDA are supporting this new sort of policy. So I think that's positive. In terms of the leadership, yeah, there are concerns. I mean, I think the morale of these employees who work there, the actual people who are going every day to the labs or offices, they got to wonder every week, like, am I going to have a job in a couple weeks? January is coming, potential another shutdown could happen too. So they're concerning things. No real solutions.
Tyler, I have just a kind of niche surprise that's sort of is related to the FDA, but is a little different. I'm really surprised that the Rare Pediatric Disease Priority Review Voucher Program hasn't been reauthorized. It expired at the end of last year. The House has recently passed the Give Kids a Chance Act, which would reauthorize the program, I think, through 2029. But the Senate has not passed it yet. So, as a result, those priority review vouchers, the price has gone up, to like $150 million. But that was just seemed like kind of an easy yes for Congress. But that program is still currently expired.
Wow. I did not hear about that. That's concerning that it wasn't an immediate yes, like you're saying.
So I had a couple of additional, I would say, high level surprises from the RNA space in general. And I would say one of which was the publication of a guidance in the personalized immunotherapy space or mRNA based immunotherapy space. So, for those of you listening who aren't necessarily quite as familiar with the mRNA world right now, the industry is kind of in a really um, is making a big push towards the therapeutic realm. And one of the biggest areas that is kind of the farthest along in development is the personalized immunotherapy space. And so the MHRA just released guidance this year on personalized mRNA immunotherapies. And one of the sections of the guidance was specifically geared towards caretakers and physicians, which I thought was a really kind of beautiful demonstration of patient centricity that we don't necessarily always see from a regulatory guidance, right? So that was one really pleasant surprise. Um, the other was on a really high note, right? The mRNA space did have a really big win outside of the vaccine world. We had the celebrations of COVID, but in 2025, early on, I think in May, we heard about the dosing of baby KJ. And so that was a N of 1 mRNA based CRISPR therapy. And that was sort of the industry moved mountains, right, to bring together a lot of suppliers, manufacturers, sites of care to help make this a reality. And just based off of the research I've done as of late, it sounds like he is still stable. Everything is going really well with that therapy. So that was a really beautiful win. Um, and then finally, on the oligonucleotide side, we're starting to see a lot more commercial maturity in that space. And so this is an area that for 2026, I'm going to be trying to dig a lot more into and learn more about. But in recent weeks, we just saw the approval of Arrowhead's Redemplo, which is an siRNA, an siRNA product. And it's an indication that is actually also being treated by another RNA product called by Ionis called Tryngolza. But what's really interesting about these approvals is that you have two different oligo constructs. You have the siRNA versus the ASO. And so I think in the upcoming year, 2 years, right, we're going to start seeing more competition between these RNA modalities heating up. And I think that's a real sign of market maturity when you're starting to try to figure out what molecule is best at targeting certain things or editing certain things, or you're learning more, I think, about these molecules in relation to each other, which is a really um, I think is an interesting indication of market maturity.
Yeah. Thanks, Anna.
Maybe a lot there, Tyler.
That was a huge win. You did. It was all great. It was all great. I agree that was a huge win for the RNA space. I'm glad to hear that baby's doing well. I don't want to spend all our time looking backwards. I want to look forwards, but just to put a bow in our reflections on 2025, if we could all just go around the metaphorical room, and if we boiled it down to, if what you think defined, what trends or topics you think defined your space, or what you saw as the most significant developments in your space in 2025, I think that'll be a good place to, kind of tie the knot and move forward in our outlook. Or at least industry speaking. I do want to get some personal highs and lows from everybody as well, but
I mean, I think in the pharma space, definitely one of the biggest themes was modernization. The addition of new technology, be it AI, upgrading processes, things of that nature. Everybody is talking about how they can do the processes better, faster, and especially now that many of these companies have new facilities, larger facilities, and they're tasked with upping their production. Continuous processing and AI and automation all really come to the forefront of the major discussions. So
I
Yeah,
could double
yeah.
here.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead, Ray. You got it.
Yeah, I was just saying, you know, piggybacking off of the AI conversation, I think that AI was huge for drug discovery as well. We saw Lilly actually build a new space, a Tune Lab, they called it. It's basically like an AI factory where they're sharing some of the models with other pharma companies in like a privacy preserving way, I think through federated learning. So I think that's pretty interesting. Many open source models are being used now by drug discoverers, like OpenFold 3, Boltz 2. I think there's a lot of promise with these tools. Basically, these like protein folding, understanding how the activity of a certain chemical or structure can potentially impact, different cells and proteins in the body. So that's definitely a growing space. And I think as there's more data, as people collect more, not just, synthetic, AI data, but they're doing work in the wet labs as well, and, incorporating that all together. I'm expecting a lot of interesting insights to come out of that for next year as well. And again, as I mentioned earlier, NAMs are huge, like organoids, organon chips, the use of AI for testing, toxicology, preclinical is definitely a big deal. And yeah, leave it at that.
I'll jump
Really
in
great.
here. I'll talk about just to continue on with the AI conversation. It's obviously not going anywhere. And for cell and gene therapy, advanced therapies, we're talking about AI and automation and manufacturing. I think a couple of the very big things that came out of, especially 2025, out of our space is um, the transition from not only treating niche rare diseases, excuse me, to targeting widespread common conditions, using novel delivery systems like in vivo gene editing. we're expanding into autoimmune disorders like lupus and MS. They're gaining much more momentum, opening up new large therapeutic areas beyond oncology. And finally, I'll end on, I mean, there are quite a few things, but I think we'll see more into 2026, certainly. Um, in vivo therapies, I think we'll see more excitement about in vivo. We'll see more data and we'll get more fine tuning around the business model and how it's used.
Yeah, I agree, Aaron. I'm really excited about the in vivo cell therapy approach. I mean, I think our best performing episode of Better Biopharma this year was the Interius episode on in vivo CAR T and process development. Um, yeah, everyone else, if you want to.
Thanks, Tyler. I think I'll, not to beat a dead horse with the AI perspective, but obviously we just can't get away from it this year. I think for outsourcing, it's going to play out a little bit differently. I think AI is going to be a big factor, but as much as AI for drug discovery is really kind of sexy and like for cell and gene therapy or whatever, and the way they're using it, I think how that plays out in sort of an outsourcing perspective on the plant floor is a different scenario. It's probably something that's already been done before it comes to some of these companies. But I think from a drug sponsor perspective to the CDMOs, I think AI is going to be used in a lot more, but maybe in a less sort of sexy way. It's going to be used, I think, more for to better communication, to better like processes, like paperwork, and kind of just expedite a lot of the sort of mundane things that may have taken up some time, and that can be done much quicker, and maybe help with the communication process between these two groups. So I think it'll be used a lot. I think it's just going to be used differently than a lot of the other folks spoke about.
And I think similar to my market, Jeff, I think it's one of its most useful applications is in data, right?
Yeah.
Data aggregation, ultimately to produce better quality drugs and reduce deficiencies, reduce imperfections. So
Yeah.
Yeah, completely agree. I figured AI would be around the horn, kind of unanimous, and I think it probably will be that way for the next, the foreseeable future, at least. Um, Ben, did you have anything to share before we?
Yeah, I mean, I would just say China's emergence as a biotech powerhouse has seemingly been a part of almost every conversation I've had with leaders at biotech and pharma companies.
Yeah.
Yeah, on that, Ben, I'm just reading now, 5 of the top 10 R&D licensing deals involve China, a company based in China. So pretty significant.
Yeah, and I just, to tap onto that too, I just put a new list out, which is, like the top 10, nations that are, sort of redrawing the outsourcing map. And China was definitely at the top of that list. They don't really, at least currently, they don't have the governmental issues that we're having, and their government's actually putting tons of money behind their people and the biotech and bioeconomy and so forth. So yeah, I think they're gonna be eating our lunch, if not already, pretty soon. So
It's wild what can happen when a government invests in
yeah, right.
science. Wow. Uh, so moving on here, I wanted to touch on a professional note here, and just hear from everybody what your favorite moments from the year were. Whether it's whether it was some professional achievements or some projects you worked on. What are you most proud of in 2025, and what were some of your high points of the year? With whoever wants to start first. Anna, you're smirking. Let's go with you.
yeah, if we're ready.
I'm ready. So I'd say I have two, and I can only really divulge one. But I can give half. I can give half on the second one. So the first one, yeah. So the first one was earlier this year. I did the keynote for the very first inaugural Cas mRNA symposium. And so that was essentially supposed to sort of give an overview of the mRNA space. which I did, but I did it through the realms of the the artist Picasso. I decided to create. For those of you who are familiar with potentially with my work, you should know I am a poet first and foremost, and so metaphors tend to come pretty readily. So I had gone to see a sketch exhibit early on in the year that was of Picasso's body of work. And throughout the generations of his work, I started to think and pick up on trends that I felt the mRNA industry was also kind of going through, right? We're currently in the stage of trying to find our voice, right? Figure out our different scientific technique, right? What our molecules can do, similar to what an artist does, right? To learn the basics and find their own artistic style. So I was really proud of how that turned out. I think it went over really well. And I have a few pieces of content that I based off of that presentation. Secondly, I will say just last week I single-handedly ate 4 Thai chilies in a row for another creative project that I'm working on that is going to be dropping on Advancing RNA in January when things are really, really cold. We're heating it up. And I'm really
Love the
proud.
Taiwan.
I am really, really proud to report that I did not get sick. I did not have indigestion, and it did not come back to bite me in any way, shape, or form. So I think, ladies and gentlemen, I may have discovered a secret superpower that I can actually handle spicy things.
Love that.
Literally and
Very exciting.
figuratively. Yeah.
Was that
Anna Rose, can I ask a quick question? Like,
Yes.
will you let us know when you think that the RNA space is going to enter its, sort of blue period like Picasso had? Is that upcoming? Okay.
I think we kind of are on the cusp of that. 2035 was definitely, I think, an introduction to that in many ways. And I think as we start to get more data readouts in 2026, there's probably going to be some sedation.
Right. Fair enough.
Anna, was that exhibit the immersive one that projects on the floor and the wall and everything? Because I think I went to that same.
No, this was at the Cleveland Art Museum, and it was just his sketches. And I did not realize that Picasso was A, so prolific, and B, just how stylistically diverse he was. I mean, he was all over the board in terms of his style. And frankly, the mRNA, RNA world, right, with all of its different modalities and therapeutic approaches is arguably just as diverse, right? So it was a really, to me, when the metaphor hit, it was like divine inspiration.
I heard you keep a notebook by the side of your bed to wake up and jot down metaphors in a cold sweat when you wake up. Is that
Yeah.
true?
Yeah, it's not a notebook, it's the notes app on my phone. We keep it millennial style over here.
Oh yeah, that's great. Who else ate chilies on camera with?
You're saying anything would pale in comparison to the creativity.
Right.
It's exceptional.
Yeah, that was a good starting point, Anna. I guess, something I could say, I joined halfway through the year, so I didn't have as much time. I actually joined on the same day as Katie, so shout out Katie. But meeting you guys and even just seeing you guys in conferences was a real highlight for me, actually. It definitely was. Hanging out with Ben and Tyler in Boston was a really good time, especially Anna too. Yeah, those are highlights of my year. I will say though, second highlight, let's call it, interviewing Bob Langer, the most cited engineer in the world, and I got to go to his lab and office and talk to him about everything from the federal shutdown to organoids to drug delivery. We talked a lot about mRNA actually, which probably would be no surprise to anybody because he's co-founder of Moderna. But yeah, that would be the second highlight, I would say.
Yeah, that's a great highlight. And I share your first highlight, which was us gallivanting through Boston, getting up to no good after bio. That was really fun.
Yeah, I'm going to add to Ray's too, because obviously I came in after even Ray and Katie, and And so really getting to know everybody on the team and getting to talk and doing stuff like this, obviously, it's a lot of fun. I'm glad, we're doing this. I hope our audience all like it too, get to know us a little bit better. But obviously, it's a great team, great group of people. So getting to know all you guys throughout the year has been fun. And I look forward to hopefully meeting up. I got to meet up with Erin at a show in Philly, and then hopefully the rest of the team at other shows. So
Ditto, Jeff. I hope our audience is still with us as well.
I mean, for me, being new to, uniquely new to the pharma space, unlike some of my colleagues, just being able to jump in feet first or head first, depending on how you look at it, and learn about this space. I'm going to be learning about it for quite some time, but it's been an exciting journey, and I'm surrounded by very supportive, amazing colleagues that have helped me along the way. I haven't done a ton of traveling this year, but I did get to go to the ISPE annual meeting and expo in Charlotte this year, and that was, I would say, one of the highlights of my year. I went to the FOIA, the Facility of the Year Award banquet, where they awarded innovation and sustainability, and it was just amazing to see all of the unique things that are happening out in these facilities. For example, J&J in Italy, they had a unique challenge where they had to change their flexible bottle packaging line from extra large batches to small to medium batches to fit the demand. And so they brought in 17 robots that can handle something like, I think it's like 500 SKUs and 170 different packaging options.
Well,
Just really cool innovation in manufacturing happening out there in facilities all over the world. And it was really neat to see those get awarded on stage. I also went to the Women in Pharma event at ISPE, and that was a lot of fun. Not only to go to a jazz club and get to meet some of the amazing ladies in pharma, but it had a theme of walking in their shoes, the women who've paved the way in pharma. We had a trivia that happened where we got quizzed on the different women who have made changes in the pharma industry, and it was a lot of fun.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Who's next?
I'll go quickly, I think. Well, I saved all of my travel for one period of the year. I did everything in November.
You
Um,
missed out your
and it'll
Literally, you did everything in November.
It was probably 2 weeks of heavy, high think, high preparedness. But I went to London for Cell 2025. The Oxford Global asked me to be the host of that event, and I think we all do a really good job of moderating panels and being invited to moderate panels on stage, certainly via our live events. This was, for me, a whole other level because it was soup to nuts, opening the event, closing the event, doing networking, opening networking drinks, moderating panels, um, you know, introducing keynote speakers. So it was a high level of preparedness, and uh, I I kind of got to see what it looks like to put on an in-person event, and I know we're gonna be going down that road across all of our products, in the next year or 2 years here, and so, I got to see what that looks like done well, and so I think I was able to accumulate some really important notes of how when we take that on as broadly as a company, what we can be doing right. Um, because like I said, working with Oxford Global, they just did a really fantastic job putting on that show. It is not easy. I don't
Hmm.
I've attended shows as, as an attendee, as a panelist, as a session moderator, and all of that work, at least for me, I think is very hard and very time consuming, and you have to be dialed in. And then there's putting on an event. So I learned a lot, and I was super grateful for the opportunity, and I got to go to London, so that was pretty cool. Um,
That's awesome.
yeah,
With everything going on with the airlines, I'm happy that you made it back in one piece and are here with us today because that's a lot of travel in a short period of time.
yeah, and I mean, thankfully, it didn't impact international travel. It they said out of the gate. I mean, that could have changed obviously, but if you know me and my background, that absolutely the timing of that was very Erin Harris like. That that's exactly what would have happened that the day I was supposed to leave or 2 days before there was a ton of air travel hiccups. So
Yeah.
it all worked out.
Thank God.
Tyler, as professional achievements or high points this year, travel wise, I'll say it was fantastic hanging out with you and Ray, getting to meet Ray in person in Boston at Bio, was a lot of fun. As far as a professional highlight, I think for me, taking over hosting duties of the Business of Biotech has been a really incredible experience and a learning experience. You know, a chance for me to try my hand at a new format and a new medium. But I have to give a shout out to Matt Pillar for doing the truly hard work of launching the podcast and building the audience over 5 years. You know, prior to my tenure, and for trusting me not to mess it all up.
Yeah, I feel you on the fear front there. It's definitely intimidating to delve into that space, and I feel you on that. I mean, starting this podcast was fun, scary, exciting, all the emotions, really. But yeah, I think you've been doing great since taking over.
Yeah.
Thanks, Tyler. Right back at you. I think Better Biopharma is awesome.
Oh, man, you're gonna make me blush on camera, dude. Thank you. No, yeah, I mean, just to chime in, I also obviously had a lot of fun at my first bio in Boston, which coincided with all of us getting to meet up. But yeah, starting this podcast was a huge professional step for me. Becoming chief editor of Bioprocess Online. I mean, talk about filling in Matt's shoes. We both kind of did a different flavor of that this year, and it's yeah, definitely big shoes to fill. Intimidating, but again, I'm honored to be trusted with it, and I know you feel the same way. Um, yeah, networking at Bio's museum party was a blast. Um, that was super duper fun. I I had some good editorial experiences with a handful of guests this year. Like a couple of my favorite projects were I think the Siren episode with Dr. Nicole Polk, the CEO and founder of Siren. Like she's always a fun hang and person to talk to about the industry, and she keeps it real, and that was a really fun episode. So was Bonum Therapeutics episode when we talked about conditionally active biologics. Even discovering those this year, I might be late to this show here, but I didn't really know much about conditionally active biologics before 2025, and now it's kind of my favorite modality of sorts. So that was really an exciting one too. And of course, working with Herman Bosenhart, friend of the show, and I know many of you have talked to or worked with him before. He's always a blast as well. So those are a couple of my favorite editorial moments this year.
I love that you have a favorite modality. That's so delightfully nerdy.
Listen, they are super duper sick. I don't know what you know about the man. I could send you some pieces. Send you some.
They're gonna be your new favorite.
Yeah. And if they're not yet, you out there in the audience, if they're not your favorite yet, buckle up because I'm
I
forcing
don't
that.
know. I mean,
Maybe I know.
mRNA is a renaissance lady, all right? So she's pretty she's the apple of my eye at the moment, but could sway me. You can sway me.
Fair enough. And you have every right to be biased. Wow. So, personally, professionally speaking, before we get into, our spaces, our markets and industry in 2026, what is everybody looking forward to personally and professionally in 2026? What projects do you have on the horizon? What do you want to do more of for our audience? What kind of initiatives do you have? I mean, don't share too much. We want to keep them on their toes, but what's everyone excited for in 2026 personally?
Well, personally, it's none of your business.
Fair enough.
I think professionally, I have two main things that I want to accomplish next year, amongst everything else. I would like to build an expert advisory board.
Mm.
That's a big task for me next year of leaders in small pharma manufacturing. And I would like to visit facilities Haven't gotten out there and done that yet, and that's something that I really need to see and would like to get the opportunity to do next year. So
Yeah, same. Especially in Pittsburgh. I mean, they're
I
around.
wanna put on some PPE and get out there.
If you're listening in Pittsburgh, hit us up. We'll come free of charge. We'll bring cameras. It's no big deal.
Or not. Or not.
Right.
Yeah.
Edie, I'm with you on 2 of the 3, or actually, we are also going to be, I shouldn't say building from scratch, but rebuilding our editorial board for various reasons. But we're going to be adding to the board that exists. So I'm really excited for that, to work with new leaders in the space to help us really guide and shape what Cell and Gene is going to be doing going forward. Also traveling a little more locally, definitely, you know, pounding the pavement in Philadelphia, at the various biotechs, it rich CDMO community too, so seeing what's out there. And the only other thing I'm super jazzed about is that in 2025 for Cell and Gene the podcast, we did a special series. We air every other Thursday, but we did a 4 consecutive week series called FDA Fridays. I want to continue that into 2025, but do one on perhaps supply chain and one on manufacturing. So those are things I'm really looking forward to for Cell and Gene for next year.
That's awesome, Erin.
I could jump in here.
I was gonna say Anna just wants to eat more Thai chilies.
Yeah.
It's gonna get hotter and hotter, Katie. It's gonna get hotter and hotter.
Anna wants to come up with more metaphors and eat more chilies. And we love
But that's a
her.
pretty good goal. That's a pretty good goal. But I'll let Ray talk first, and then I'll. And
No, it's okay. You go right ahead. Go for it.
I mean,
Ray also wants to eat more chilies.
I love spicy food. So
Oh, we have a few. Ray and I have been cooking up some behind the scenes magic here that involve another type of food. So well, who knows what's going to happen in 2026?
oh my gosh.
I would say, I'm looking forward to traveling as much as I possibly can in 2026. That's one of my favorite parts of the job, is actually being out there and hearing what people are talking about live, being able to meet people that I've only ever seen over Zoom, or reconnect with the people that I, you know and connect with pretty regularly throughout my time in a space. So I'm really looking forward to that. I'd ideally like to take this pepper eating challenge, which again we will.
Take it on
I'm not gonna. I can't reveal yet what it is, but once it drops, you'll understand. In January, I'd really like to start taking it on the road live, and it perhaps how do I say, expose other folks to this, to the magic of eating peppers and learning more about the mRNA space. I would say too, one of the big priorities for me in 2026 is to expand my knowledge continually. I mean, we're always doing that, but I have not done justice to the fact that the RNA space is not just mRNA or self-amplifying or circular RNA, it's also your oligonucleotides. Um, so I am really looking to build my network in that space, starting with building an editorial board, right, that covers both sides of the RNA industry. I'm going to be expanding some of my live events to focus more on that manufacturing paradigm, that set of raw materials, right, those types of molecules, and just in general trying to write more and draw more of that audience to the site. So, and there's I'm selfish in this, that I do really love to learn, and I've spent a couple of years delving into the intricacies of mRNA, and so now there's a pretty rich amount to dig into, I think, and a really great amount of room to sort of start to bring metaphor to the oligonucleotide sector. So those are
Love it.
some of my goals.
Love it. That's great, Anna. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to seeing you on Hot Ones at some point, maybe next year. Who knows? On a personal level, I probably won't be traveling a lot, at least not long distance, because the Dogum household will be welcoming a baby girl in early 2026. So that's probably the biggest
So excited.
thing for me next year. On the professional side, I'm also looking forward to building out our editorial advisory board for Drug Discovery Online and also doing the virtual live panels. I think they're actually a lot of fun. I only did one this year, focused on NAMs, but next year we'll have a lot more. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, pass it off.
Awesome, Ray. Congratulations again. That's just so exciting for you and the missus.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Stoked for you. New editor in training.
Yeah, so I think for me, for professionally, it's, the single compound word would be multimedia, doing a lot of multimedia for next year. I've been pretty lucky. Obviously, chief editor Louis Gargiulo has put together a pretty big editorial panel. I think we have about 33 folks that he's utilized pretty frequently over the years in various aspects. But we came up with this idea of trying to engage them editorially in multimedia in a different way. Some different video context, some interviews, some different styles that I just got finished recording some that they're being worked on right now. So hopefully they'll be out pretty soon. And then I'm also looking to start a podcast myself, but trying to do a little bit different style. Not that there's anything wrong with the classic style, but just trying to mix it up a little bit, try something different, short, sweet, kind of a little bit more editorial story behind it, and with weaved in with some quotes and video stuff from various guests that I have to tell a story in as sort of brief time as possible, as well as to help the audience. I think at the end of the day, Lewis and I talk all the time, and then our main goal is to really try to help drug sponsors with their questions that they have when trying to engage with outsourcing partners, and it's really our main goal. And so a lot of this multimedia stuff is going to be really geared towards that, and then hopefully the audience likes it. We're going to try to make it fun and interesting. So
That's awesome, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff, I look forward to that podcast. I'm excited about for next year, and this is in part just due to my current Outlook inbox. But J.P. Morgan is coming up in January. That conference really helps set the agenda for the coming year. In my experience, I'll be recording some in-person Business of Biotech episodes out there, and doing some interviews and catching up with folks that a lot of times I only see in San Francisco for JP Morgan. So that's always a good time. And then Life Science Leader 2 is going to be launching some new live webcast digital events next year. And so I'm excited about some of the topics we've been discussing for those live events. And then lastly, I guess I just want to try to bring new voices into Life Science Leader, whether it's through the podcast, Business of Biotech, through written articles, or through the new live events.
Yeah, that's exciting, Ben. Everybody has quite a year planned. I'm excited to see it all play out. Like Jeff said, and a couple of you mentioned, I too want to get into more multimedia. Got my feet wet a bit this year, but I want to lean more into that. Get the podcast sponsored. That's my big goal. If you're out there and you got some advertising dollars to spend, hit up your boy. I'll be waiting. And yeah, so enough about us as personalities. Let's talk about the industries we serve here, or the markets we serve. Looking out into 2026, what's everybody excited for to see in the industry? What do you hope to see? What do you think could happen that people should pay attention to, good or bad? And what trends do you think will continue? What have you heard from your advisory board? Just give us a full plate. We could start with whoever wants to go. If you want me to start up, I just saw some recent news about the National Biopharmaceutical Manufacturing Center of Excellence that is currently it was proposed. I don't know if it's in the House or Senate. I'm not politically minded, to be honest with you, but I know it's a proposal right now that all in an effort to onshore domestic manufacturing, and it seemed I saw something that kind of resembles a reincarnation of the Biosecure Act. And so that's something that I want to pay attention to. And hopefully the former leads to more domestic bioprocessing jobs. I mean, I see the lamentations on our biotech subreddit every day about the job market. I really hope that turns around. But yeah, and again, to raise the earlier point about the Eli Lilly Toon Lab collaboration, like I hope to see more of that. I hope to see more sharing of data insights and use cases with AI and things like that. But just a couple of things I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I think Tyler, that's all really excellent, important information, but it'll apply across the board. I think I could piggyback on what you're saying on a couple of things that if we can, I think what excites me most for cell and gene therapy is that people seem to be getting better about um, you know, operating like a long-term ecosystem and not a collection of isolated programs. That was a big theme across the events that I went to at the end of the year here. And sharing not only the wins, but also the missteps, the losses. We can all learn from each other. We're all trying to, yes, build businesses, but also ultimately impact patient outcomes. And so that's how one of the ways we do it. I would say the other thing that I'm really excited for is this platformization of manufacturing. I think a lot of today's cell and gene therapy companies, they operate with a real uncomfortable level of digital fragility, I guess you could call it. We're talking about workflows and supply chain tools, and they all exist kind of on these isolated islands. And how are we going to work to platformize these systems so that we can bring, kind of these bespoke therapies into a broader patient population. We seem to be getting better at that, especially toward the end of the year here, but I'm really excited to see how that plays out into 2026 and beyond. It's not going to happen overnight, but there seems to be a collective mindset about why all that is important.
Great, Aaron. Thank you.
I think I'll just say something about the commercial side of biotech and pharma. I think that's going to be an interesting space to watch. Drug pricing. We have most favored nations. Trump RX. I mean, I think it's hard to understate the impact of the growth of the GLP-1 market, for example. I mean, we've talked about Eli Lilly's manufacturing. They're the first company to ever have over $1 trillion valuation, which is pretty wild. So and now, starting in 2026, I think through a pilot program, Medicare and Medicaid will start covering GLP-1s for weight loss for the first time ever, at least for Novo and Eli Lilly, who have agreed to participate in that program. So I expect that to be an additional windfall for both companies. But I think the commercial side is one that I'm going to be definitely looking at and paying attention to next year.
Well, and speaking to GLP-1s specifically, Ben, next year we're going to see the first oral GLP-1 come out for weight loss. And I think that's going to change the market significantly. I mean, as you said, Eli and Nova are the front runners in getting theirs out to market first, but there's a handful right behind them. So
And there was just some preclinical RNA data on the oligo side that suggests that there could be RNA competition to some of these GLP-1s. So I know.
Watch out, everybody.
I think it's pretty early stage data. I'd have to look up more facts about it, but that's been kind of blowing up my LinkedIn feed the past day or two. So interesting. Kind of on that note, I would say one of the things that I'm most excited about in 2026, and a little bit trepidatious as well, as I think 2026 is going to be the year that we do start to learn really, really, really learn some of the limitations and some of the benefits, right, of RNA in a therapeutic capacity. I think we're moving forward into the clinic. We've had some really great readouts this year. Preclinically, we've had a couple of really nice readouts from the clinic as well with RNA candidates. in the therapeutics realm outside of, the prophylactic vaccine space. But at the same time, we also have seen some less than positive news, right, in the mRNA space as well. So I think, one of the bigger clinical trials, one of the leading in vivo gene editing companies, Intellia, got some problematic news, right? There was a patient death in their trial, so that's kind of paused that trial for the moment while they try to figure out what happened. And so I think that, we've been saying this for a few years, but I think 2026 is going to be the year where we start to finally see what mRNA is at an early stage capable of therapeutically. I have a wish that, we do as a space continue to make progress politically. I know AMM, or the Alliance for mRNA Medicines, has been working overtime, right, to try and educate Congress, the Senate, just the executive members, right? What exactly is happening with mRNA in this world? Why some of the policies that they are instituting are very harmful for both the U.S. as a leader in biosafety, in terms of the U.S. as a leader in biology, right? Innovation, but also how it can be harmful to mRNA itself as a therapeutic agent. So I'd love to see more positive progress, more, I would say, public facing education around what mRNA is, and how it works in a way that is, helpful for the layperson to better understand, especially as we do start to move into more therapeutic indications. And then finally, I think, I talked a little bit about this as well, but starting to see more competition amongst some of the modalities in the RNA space, and really helping us carve out what a competitive commercial product looks like, both on the mRNA side, but also right on the oligo side. I think those are some of the things that I'm most looking forward to in 2026.
I think a lot of the stuff that we've been talking about plays into, what we call the bioeconomy, and, and it's just something that I've been focused on for a few years, and, learning about, and, learning what's been going on. And, it touches sort of all aspects, right? Everything from government to the, basic science research to actual, pharma, sort of drug production, drug development, and even outsourcing to some degree. So it'll be interesting to see how, a lot of that plays out. The U.S. was dumping a lot of money into the bioeconomy, and, the Biden administration had put, executive order together that unfortunately was just this year, I think, was just deleted. But it was also, doing for a lot of, bioproduction, bioeconomy work as well. So it was kind of setting us out there to be a leader. Hopefully that continues into 2026 in some other form, and however that may be, because like we talked about earlier, there's, other countries that are surpassing us in many, many ways. And, that's never going to be a good thing for the future when it comes to, sort of scientific research as well. But from a title perspective, from outsourcing, I mentioned in the beginning, I think the thing that to look forward to for next year is what we're starting to see at the end of this year, and to continue, which is the resiliency of the space, being able to adapt to pretty, tumultuous times, and just uncertainty, right? Like, it's every other week, it was something different, a different tone that came out from the administration of like, what, what's going to be tariffed, what's not, and what area is going to be, hit, and which one's not, and so forth. And these organizations just really kind of said, okay, here's what we're going to do, and we're going to move forward, because one, it's business. We need to get this stuff done, and, we need to get paid. But at the end of the day, it's also making products for patients. And so, I think they've done a pretty good job of meeting a lot of those demands. The GLP-1, like I mentioned earlier, as we all have, that was going to be a big crush. And I think everybody was thinking, oh my God, we're gonna run out of space, we're gonna run out of capacity, and it turned out not to be the case, thankfully. Now with maybe with Katie was talking about earlier, with the new drug, the new, oral GLP-1 medication, you could start all over again, because the last data that I saw from a clinical trial for that, it was even that the data looked even better than some of the current drugs on the market. So who knows? It'll be interesting to see for the future.
Yeah.
But small mole's faster. So
Yeah. Yeah.
we're gonna plan. I think from my perspective, now that we have increased capacity for manufacturing and the request for lower prices, we're really going to see advanced manufacturing technologies take off in ways that they haven't before. I mean, we've been talking about continuous manufacturing for a long time, but it's really only been applied largely in big pharma, where they have the funds readily available to make that initial investment. But now you're going to see, mid-size, small pharma investing in more advanced manufacturing technologies so that they can keep their prices competitive and increase their manufacturing capacity. So that's what I'm looking forward to in 2026.
One thing that's really big on my list is just this NAMS, new approach methodologies. This is a market that's growing. You're seeing a lot of different companies trying to develop specific protocols or tools, whether it's like a heart on a chip sort of thing, or brain on a chip, or brain organoids. We're already seeing some regulatory push for standardization of these tools, so that multiple sponsors, other companies can, use them in their preclinical models. And I think when I say preclinical models, this could be toxicology, metabolism, pharmacokinetics. There's a lot of different ways to use NAMs. So I'm looking forward to more, innovations around that space. And something that actually Tyler said earlier regarding data sharing, I do think, or at least I hope, that more companies start to find, creative ways of sharing pre-competitive data with each other, so that they can, share some of these insights, so that we don't have like redundant lab work being done by multiple groups multiple times. Again, I know that's hard because, especially in the early stages, your data is basically what values your company, so that'll be tricky, but I think there are ways to do it potentially. So I'm looking forward to learning more about that.
Thank you, Ray. Well, guys, we've been on for quite a while. I don't want to hold you up. I know you're all very busy. So without further ado, we're going to get to the main question of the show, which is, in your opinion, how can we better biopharma? Meaning, whether it's the way we design, manufacture, distribute, otherwise make and develop these drugs, how can we improve the way we do that? And so I'll make an exception for our small molecule friends in the crowd here, not everybody. So I guess more broadly, how can we better pharma and better biopharma? Katie, we'll go with you.
Since you're making fun of small mole, I'll go first. I mean, sort of circling back to the beginning of this conversation, where we're going to see big improvement is the adoption of new technology, AI, automation, robotics. And I think that can be intimidating for some leadership. And so jumping into that technology is important, but defining the value before you jump into it, I think, is more important. And I actually sat in a ISPE Pharma 4.0 conference earlier today, and they said exactly that. Don't let technology intimidate you, but before you jump in and say, we have to add AI now, or whatever the case may be, define the value and identify the business benefit, and then jump in. So,
That's great.
yeah. And that's kind of infringing on your territory, Ben, and I'm sorry about that.
No, not at all. I'm going to go broad on this question to Tyler. I think, to better biopharma, keep taking big risks, to address patient needs and underserved indications. Don't necessarily add a Me Too GLP-1 to your pipeline, to boost your valuation temporarily. And then lastly, stop building patent thickets.
I'm going to
Great
go
point.
broad too, but I'm going to say build for scalability much earlier than perhaps you are or think you need to, meaning, designing designing therapies with manufacturability in mind, um, investing in those analytical strategies, AI automation, um, creating more transparent payer engagement, which is a whole other. Um, and anyway, but thinking about access long before the BLA filing, and share those missteps and anything you can with the entire ecosystem. Everyone benefits from it. So
I
I'll jump
agree
in
with both
here.
points.
Yeah, I would jump in there and say this is entirely somewhat self-serving. So maybe we can avoid the fact this is going to sound selfish, but also is a really good way of bettering biopharma. It's really important to communicate. I think we've learned in the mRNA space the challenges that come from not communicating clearly what your technology can do. But I would also argue the importance of talking to people like us, right? And sharing your best practices and your learnings. I hope AI doesn't come for our jobs, right? At the end of the day, we're all people and we can tell a good story, and so can you, right? Those of you who are listening, you can tell an important story. And the work that you do may not seem sexy, but I can tell you that it absolutely is. So, don't be afraid to share what you've learned with folks like us and with your peers in the industry. I think that's really important. Can't be said
I don't think it's selfish at all.
No, we're really nice.
We're really nice.
We are. Look, we
Yeah.
smile.
I'm gonna build off of what
Views podcast.
Yeah.
I'm going to build off of what Anna Rose said, and go a little older school too, in the sense that customer service, it's something we're hearing from some of the smaller biotechs, in the outsourcing space, is that they're just they've had some bad service from some of these organizations, and it's leaving a bit of a bad taste in our mouth. So I think that's something that we're going to try to address next year. How do we improve that? And I think communication obviously is part of that process, but just in general, some better customer service. I mean, there's so many outsourcing companies now, and Lewis had read an article, and he used a really good analogy about like supermarkets and how you can choose supermarket, and I thought that was really good. And I actually thought of like car dealerships. You can buy a car anywhere, right? There's 7 car dealerships to get the same car, but what makes you choose the one is technically, probably something like service. Assuming you're getting the same price, you probably go there because like, hey, I like them. They give me good service and they service my car well, or whatever. And it's the same principle here for outsourcing. There's lots of companies that will do the same job. It's a matter of finding the right partner, and I think good customer service is going to be the key there.
Yeah, that's a great point, Jeff. That was one of my highlights of the year that I meant to mention before, was hosting a panel at Bio that dove into that exact subject about CDMOs and the kind of the experience that small biotech companies feel versus larger biotech companies, and that perceived disparity. So I agree that it's shout out Set of Ants for having me moderate that panel. That was awesome. But no, I agree. I hope to see more improvement there in that realm. Right?
Yeah. So how to make biopharma better? I think making sure that the new innovations, like the new modalities, the new discoveries are still funded. I feel like, especially this year, funding has shifted away from risky assets, kind of like what Ben was saying, to more, conservative clinical stage companies. We need to find maybe alternative methods for funding these projects, these like, few people research projects. One idea is something called decentralized science, which there's a whole community out there focusing on ways to do that. So I encourage people to just maybe check it out, see if it fits with your programs. Still a relatively new idea, but I think it could better biopharma is what I'm saying.
Yeah, that's great, Ray. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
I had 2 written down, and since I'm the host, I'll give you both of them because I'm allowed. But I think the one is something that, we touched on throughout the discussion, which is just this whole idea of collaborating and sharing pre-competitive data. Like I think that's, or at least the insights that we derive from them, especially as all these companies are using very similar tools, digital tools, which we just had a live event about. That's another story. But just where everyone's trying to do the same thing and using these tools for the first time and really just trying to carve a way, make a path, like sharing across the industry in a way that would honestly help competition, I think is important to, what the saying with the rising tide raising all the boats, like exactly that. Just share best practices around AI implementation and data insight sharing. And I think more importantly, and diving deeper into this whole AI paradigm that we're witnessing in real time, is just don't undervalue human potential or like overlook the value of humans in all of it. I mean, I think the best way we could improve this industry is to invest in the next generation of the workers and the people that are going to be bringing these things ahead. Like, we need to not let AI, can't outsource every single part of the professional world to AI. Don't outsource your thinking to AI. We need students in school to learn still and enter the workforce. We need to be investing in the next generation of workers. So yeah, my answer would be to not undervalue humans in the whole grand scheme of things. And now we'll end on one fun question in the holiday spirit. We'll go around and I'll ask all the editors to either A, give me your favorite holiday movie, or B, if it's appropriate, your favorite holiday tradition that you guys do in your house or your family.
My favorite holiday movie is National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, hands down.
Yeah, that's a great one. I'd say mine.
Buguliskis is my man.
Yeah, either that or Elf were my bread and honey growing up for sure.
I would
Anna?
say it's a tie for Christmas Vacation for sure, but my long-standing favorite movie is It's a Wonderful Life, but the reason is because it's a great movie, and if anybody hasn't watched it, it still holds up today, it's excellent, but when I was in, like, 5th or 6th grade and I was thoroughly convinced I was gonna marry Joe McIntyre of New Kids on the Block, that was his favorite movie, and so I felt that if he was gonna marry me someday, I would have to make that my favorite movie too. Turns out it's just a great movie. He and I didn't end up together, but it's still one of my favorite movies.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
I can go next. So hard to pick a favorite movie, but I do love Home Alone 2. And the reason I like number 2 is there's a funny scene where they're in the basement and Marv gets electrocuted and then he turns into like a skeleton. In my mind as a child watching that was just hilarious. So it still sticks with me.
Right.
So that's what I say.
Right. I think Home Alone 2, I like it better than 1. I think I was because I always love the scene where they're hiding up in the attic of Carnegie Hall. I always thought that was really neat as a kid. Okay, my answer is going to be completely off the wall. But
I could tell by the way you were squirming when on mute when I asked the question.
my favorite Christmas movie is not life affirming or positive, but it is called Violent Night.
That's effort. I thought you were gonna go Die Hard, and I'm like, hey, it was a Christmas
No.
movie.
I mean,
that.
I am of the mind that Die Hard is a Christmas movie. Right.
100%.
But I would say Violent Night because Santa is a Viking and he comes to avenge and save a young girl from some goons that are ransacking their Christmas.
And I just
Awesome.
I've watched that movie. It is hilarious. They're coming out with a sequel next December,
they?
by the way, December 2026. Violet.
I don't know how I feel about sequels, but the first one, hands down, solid choice.
Wow.
Solid choice.
Support it.
Okay, I agree. Die Hard is definitely a Christmas movie, and apparently so is Lord of the Rings. I just found out that Tolkien actually was a huge Christmas fan and wrote that to be told around Christmas time, which I thought was pretty fascinating. For me, like Christification's great or whatever, but I've always been a sucker for a Christmas Carol, just in all its various forms. Like I kind of end up watching all the different ones from the oldest ones to like some of the newer ones, just, it's a great story. And it's interesting that Scrooge is really not, although he's been maligned as being, this worst character, he turns out to be the great character in the end, that everybody always forgets about that part. It was like, oh, you're a Scrooge. I'm like, whoa, Scrooge was a great character. Really, he turned into a great character. Everybody just forgets the ending part. But yeah, that's mine.
Jeff, you get called Scrooge a lot.
I do. No,
Sounded like a that sounded like a personal story there.
He's so misunderstood.
Scrooge is actually a really cool guy. A lot of people don't give him enough credit for the change.
He's the best.
Dynamic. Very dynamic. Ben?
I'd probably have to go with Christmas Vacation, but I'll just quickly give an honorable mention to a movie called Prancer that my mother for many years made us watch every
Yeah.
Christmas Eve.
It's so good. So good. Yes, 100%.
Very sweet.
Well, Katie, Jeff, Ben, Ray, Erin, Anna, thank you all so much for joining me on this episode of Better Biopharma, the official podcast of Bioprocess Online. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next year. Bye.